Hello, hi. If you've never seen my face before, my name is JC. Welcome to today's video. I'm going to be giving you guys my fall recommendations. Now, I live in Southern California. We're currently in a heat wave. It's going to be 102 today, so I'm not experiencing fall for a very long time. I'm in shorts and a t-shirt for the next foreseeable future, but I know many of you are going to be experiencing fall soon and you're trying to figure out what to read. So I'm going to be giving you guys all the books that I think are perfect to read this fall. I kind of want to make a little disclaimer at the beginning of this video because I know recommendation videos can be kind of scary because you don't want to risk being spoiled for a book. So I just want to let you guys know that I'm just going to be kind of saying the book, obviously I liked it, maybe I'll do 1-2 sentences, but I'm just going to put a bullet list, a few bullets to kind of give you the vibe that won't spoil anything, and so you can kind of guess pretty quickly if you would be interested in it. Now, to make this list, I just went over to my Goodreads. I scrolled through the books that I read over the last few years. I noted the ones that I wanted to recommend to you guys, and then I went and grabbed any of the physical books that I had. Now, I have quite a lot, but if you guys watch my channel, you know I'm an avid library lover and Libby lover, so I have about 13 to 15 books that are just written down on my phone that I'll throw up, the cover of the book or something. So I did try to organize these in a way that made sense. Let's see how well I did. This first section is going to be kind of literary fiction, weirdness, perfect for spooky season. This would be My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. I feel like I just always have to recommend it. If you like this book, you definitely have to pick up Bunny and vice versa. They have the same weirdness, the same just what did I just read? I feel like they're perfect for October when you're kind of getting burnt out on all the mystery thrillers you want to read, but you still kind of want that weird eeriness. I just had such a great time with these. These were not 5-star reads by any means. They were 4.25, but they're just perfect for the fall weirdness. And then moving on to just kind of great fall literary fiction kind of vibe, The Unmaking of June Farrow. Now this does kind of have a level of kind of mystery to it, I suppose, but so much of it is just this is a beautiful story. And I feel like the fall vibes of just cozying up on the couch with this book and just unraveling everything that is in this is just perfect. That is the perfect season, in my opinion, to read this book and let all of the vibes of it just enhance your experience. So I recommend this in the fall heavily. Up that same alley, I read 19 Steps by Millie Bobby Brown. Now, Millie Bobby Brown was more the face of this book. She worked with the ghostwriter to write it, and I thought this was just a beautiful story. It's historical fiction in a way. It's basically following a family throughout the war and just the different experiences that you can have through it. So it's a fiction book, but Millie Bobby Brown was taking her family history in order to create the story, and I just thought it was so beautiful. It kind of has a similar feel as far as the perfect time to read it being fall and the beautiful story element. I feel like if you like this, it's not about the same plot, but it's just the feelings you had reading this. I feel like you would like 19 Steps. Next up, we're going to talk about mystery thrillers. Now, I do own some of these books, but a few months ago, I packed up all the books that I had read and I didn't plan on rereading anytime soon, which I feel like it's so rare to reread mystery thrillers. So I do own some of these because I love them so much. But overall, first up would be How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This book was just spooky. It was so spooky. I love horror movies, mystery thriller movies. My favorite Halloween movies are the ones that are suspenseful, kind of that psychological thriller, things like that. How to Sell a Haunted House, I was visualizing the spookiness of this haunted house pretty quickly. Within 20-30 pages, my heart rate, I was spooked. So I feel if you want to be spooked but not scared, it's not some bloody, gory, book by any means, this would be a good one to start with. I next wrote Alice Feeney because there's no particular book, but Alice Feeney overall is such a bingeable mystery thriller author, and I love the way she writes her books. I just love them. I think Daisy Darker is one that I would recommend, and Rock, Paper, Scissors was another great one. feel like if you just like kind of get into her writing, then you just put on the audiobook, you're making a puzzle, you're cleaning up the house, and you're just like listening to the story unfold. I feel like Alice Feeney is just a great storyteller. So you can't really do any wrong. I feel like you just pick up a book, just pick one up and see how you like it. These last two were ones that I was able to listen to as ALCs, so Advanced Listener Copy through LibreFM's program. So I don't know how the like physical reading experience would be, but I loved these audiobooks. So the first one is Home is Where the Bodies Are. This was such a unique one for me, and I feel like I could totally see it being a movie. I could kind of play it out as well, and just thinking about how the VHS tapes are embedded. You can see like the cover of it gives that vibe, and like I can kind of visualize like the Sinister movies, you know, like The Conjuring, like it just gave that vibe to me. I had a great time with this. And then the last one is Such a Bad Influence. This one is not necessarily like fall, you know what I mean? But I thought the audiobook, as far as like a mystery thriller or just really mystery, was so good. I had such a great time with this. I was listening to this while at work, and I felt like I was truly listening to a documentary, because it's about like an influencer that goes missing and thinking about our world. And like I just had watched the like TikTok cult documentary. I was like, yo, this is wild. Like I'm literally listening to a Netflix documentary right now. So I highly recommend those audiobooks. I had such a great time. I think Home is Where the Bodies Are I also listened to in like one sitting because it was so bingeable. So I really recommend these books. I feel like you always hear about like other common books for mystery thrillers, so I try to like shrink it down to ones that aren't talked about often, or like kind of like newer releases. But yeah, those are the ones that I recommend. I have a couple romance recommendations, but I'm gonna be honest, it's rare that I'm reading a fall romance book. I feel like in the fall season, I'm really gravitating towards the like mystery thrillers, literary fiction, and of course the fantasy books, which fantasy romance is different to me. Right now I'm thinking of like really romance is the forefront of the book, you know what I mean? So I have a couple recommendations. The first one being Love Theoretically. How do I not? Ali Hazelwood, we know her STEM books kind of focus on a certain science in each one. So this one is physics. I have that bias, guys. I got my degree in physics. I work in the physics area of science, and so I feel like I had that bias towards it, but I just love this book so much, and I know a lot of non-physics people love it too. But I feel like in general, like the academic books are really great to read in the fall, especially like September, October, because you know everyone's going back to school. You kind of like have that school mentality, school vibe. So I really love this one. If there are other Ali Hazelwood STEM books that you know have put off, I feel like you could totally give those a shot, but this was definitely my favorite. And then I have Butcher and Blackbird, which I read in August and absolutely fell in love. I'm a true crime loving girly, and to think about two serial killers falling in love, you're joking. You're joking. Like, this was so good, and I feel like perfect for the fall, October time. And now we have the second book out, Leather and Lark. I actually just bought it, so I'm going to be reading that this fall. But if you guys have any interest in this, I feel like now is the time to pick it up. Before I jump into my favorite category, which would be the fantasy romance, I have two books to recommend that are kind of just YA, not really the fantasy side. Those would be from my favorite author, Jennifer Lynn Barnes, because how can I not recommend her books? So we have the Natural series, so I'm recommending the whole series if I'm honest, but we're not going to hold all those up here. So the Natural series, and then the Inheritance Games. Now, these are books for the people that love the riddles, love to solve puzzles. It's just like mystery, but like YA. Here, you have someone that inherited a whole lot of money from someone she has no idea who he is. And so that whole family is like, why are you here? I don't understand. Who are you? And then this one is following, you always hear it, YA Criminal Minds. It's a group of misfits that have special talents that the FBI have taken under their wing in order to put them in a program to help train up their skill set and help them solve crimes. So fun. And I feel like the whole like mystery vibe, when you just don't want a mystery thriller kind of book that's like more thriller, you're like, I've read a lot of those, I want a break, but I want something that's still like the mystery, the intrigue. Her writing is so bingeable. It's so easy to get into. I just like love her brain. If I'm honest, I want to be her friend because her brain to make these books the most impressive thing ever. We're saving the best for last. We're finally talking about the fantasy romance, the best category to read during fall. Honestly, year-round, but I feel like the experiences are always enhanced in fall, winter months. So I'm going to talk about all the books that I have physically first, and then I have about 8 written down that I'll just, one by one put up the cover of the titles. I feel like I have a good variety of standalones, duologies, trilogies, and full-blown series. So I feel like if you're seeking out something, I do have a good variety of standalones, duologies, trilogies, and full-blown series. So I feel like if you're seeking out something in particular, I got you covered. So first up is Daughter of the Pirate King. Now this is a duology and I read it last month. I read it because Allie recommended it to me. We did this book swapping video over on her channel and I really don't think I would have picked this up anytime soon without her recommending it. And I am so glad that she did because I had such a great time with this to the point that I immediately went to my library to check out the second book in the duology. So it's sitting behind me and I definitely want to read it this month. If you are interested in fantasy, if you haven't read any fantasy or you're starting out, I feel like this is a good beginner's book because it's not hard to understand. It's very easy, very bingeable. The fantasy romance here, chef's kiss. Ooh, next one is a top favorite for me for sure, and that is Defy the Night by Bridget Kimmerer. If you watched, I think it was last July, I was introduced to this trilogy, and at that time the first 2 books were out, and I'd read the first 2, and I was so in love with this author's writing that I seeked out every book that she had, and I read like 7 of her books that month. Like, it was so insane. I was obsessed, obviously. Now we have the entire trilogy out, so if it's something you want to start, you do have all the books at your disposal now. I loved this. I love this so much. I feel like everything they explore in this was so well done. I love Bridget Kimmerer. I feel like I have to recommend this. Caraval. So this is, I wouldn't say it's a hot topic, but it's like well discussed across all book communities, and it's whether or not you should read the Caraval trilogy ahead of Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. My vote, yes. And it's because I like this trilogy. Now I will say, I gave Caraval 3.5 for the the main characters we follow here. I didn't really obsess over, but in the second book, when we follow other characters, 5 stars. Well, maybe it wasn't 5, like 4.5, 4.75. I know, just I loved it so much. This world is so fun. I feel like if you like the whole inheritance games of like riddles, puzzles, like the kind of mental side of like games, this was just fun to be a part of. And I loved the entire trilogy. And one of the characters in this trilogy, Jax, is introduced to you. I think it's in book 2. I don't think it was book 1. So like maybe book 2, and then you have him in those 2 books to kind of, get familiar with him as he's the main character in Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. So I really recommend this book, and obviously if you want to continue the trilogy, you can. I have to recommend this. I can't just do this video and not. This is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. As we can see, I had a great time reading this. I have a reading vlog over on my channel, so if you want to see kind of more in-depth thoughts as I read it, it was a spoiler-free vlog with a spoiler section at the end, I believe. And I had a great time with this. I did a buddy read, which I do feel like enhanced the experience. I do want to say, because it's out there, that I didn't love Reckless, the second book in the trilogy, but I'm still very much reading that 3rd book. The novella also, between this book and Reckless, I felt a whole lot. So I highly recommend getting into this if you've been putting it off. I feel like the hype of it is over. The intimidation of a hype book, we're over that. So if you are curious to pick it up, I highly recommend doing it this fall. Next up is another duology, and this I rated both like 4.75. It was just missing that, small thing that makes it a 5-star, but both books, they were so good. And again, duologies are my favorite because of the fact that you can just get into a world, you get more than the single book, so you get a little more development, but you don't have the intimidation of starting a whole series. So having a 2-book little world of a fantasy, yes, sign me up. And the romance in here, I loved it. I loved it. And they're not small books, but they're definitely the perfect fantasy size book. And we get maps, like, hello. You get a map, like, I just love a good map in a book. I just love a good map. God, I love this duology. This is a newer one for me, but this is Belladonna. You could definitely see the waves of this happening on the book community. I picked it up last month, and oh my gosh, I fell in love. I am currently at 95% in Foxglove. It's sitting somewhere on that table. You guys, I'm on page like 20 of Belladonna, and I'm like, am I attracted to death? Am I shipping our main female character to be in a relationship with death? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I am. So if you've seen the hype of this, it's hype for a reason, in my opinion. I highly recommend this. And the whole death vibe here, spooky season. It's spooky season. You have to read it. Next up is a standalone, but if you love this, she has so much more. So this is Heartless by Marissa Myers. Now, I just love the fantastical world of this. It is a, what is it, Wonderland, like Wonderland retelling, so Alice in Wonderland, you know, but we are following the Queen of Hearts origin story here, and it was such a surprise to me. I just had such a fun time with this. I did have the audiobook as well. I did a hybrid read and really enjoyed that. So if this is something you're interested in and you find like maybe you're starting out a little bit and you're like, I don't know if I'm really getting into this, maybe pick up the audiobooks. I just know that like with that going on, oh my gosh, I was just in this so much. It was such a unique thing for me because I just never really considered the Queen of Hearts origin story. So fun. And then I haven't read them yet. I do have the first book, but if you kind of love this fantastical retelling, if you will, she has the Lunar Chronicles, which are following different princesses, but like a retelling. You know what I mean? Like the first one's Cinder, second one's Scarlet, and Cress, and Winter. Like Winter's literally holding the apple. Like, oh my gosh, if you love this, I would highly recommend then jumping into Lunar Chronicles. I've seen nothing but amazing things about those, and I definitely want to get into them myself. Words are not my friend today. Almost done with our physical list. So this is the second book, so I don't have the first one easily somewhere. I have no idea where it is, but this is a trilogy, and it's a discovery of witches. That is the first book. So the second one is Shadow of Night. That's the book I'm on, a book that I want to read this fall. But I remember having so much fun with this, and it is kind of this academic setting as well, especially in the beginning. So talk about me highly recommending Love Theoretically because of the academic setting. Same thing here, especially for book one. I have no idea about book two, but book one, we like start out for these two scholars that are then being introduced to each other as witches and vampires and all the things, and they're living amongst us. It's like our world, but it's like those fantastical beings living amongst us in our day-to-day lives, and it was just so interesting, and I definitely want to pick it up. I've been putting it off. I have no idea why, but I'm very excited to read it this fall. I have to continue this. It is at least a trilogy, but it's kind of like more books are involved in the world after this, so you can kind of stop at this trilogy from my understanding, or you could continue it. Then we have another duology. This is the second book in it. I don't know if I owned the first. I don't remember what happened, but it is One Dark Window and then Two Twisted Crowns. So I have to read this also on my full TBR, which you will see in the video coming soon. But One Dark Window, holy smokes. The audiobook for that as well, I did a hybrid read. Chef's Kiss. It was so good. I had such a great time with it. I mean, a lot of people love it, so I didn't expect to dislike it, but it was definitely a pleasant surprise. It's kind of a little bit out of my comfort zone, kind of, I don't know, touches on those like darker topics. It's like Belladonna kind of has like this darker vibe to it with the whole death component, and then this is the same feeling. I mean, just like looking at these covers, you know, like, I don't know, it says Maiden, Monster, Martyr. That's the vibe. That's the vibe. Those are the 3 bullet points. The last one I have physically is my journey that I'm going on this fall, and that is the entire Throne of Glass series. So I'm buddy reading this with my friend. I've read the entirety of this. I'm about like 60%, a little over halfway of Throne of Glass, and I'm currently, like, I've read all of this, but I'm currently rereading them as I go through the series because I found a reading guide that says, like, to read certain novellas ahead of certain books that essentially make the most sense ahead of whatever's happening in that book. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like, you can see I didn't tab the first time. Oh, it's kind of hard because I have it focused weird, but you can see all those tabs is from when I reread the first novella. It's insane, actually insane. Now let's jump into the 8 that I have on here. So, Evergreen. This book is on Kindle Unlimited, I believe, and it's gonna be maybe a trilogy. There is a second book in the works, but our BFF author is like getting a mechanical engineering master's or a PhD. Like, she's booked and busy. Being an author is not her first job. So we're getting it when we're getting it. I know that she's writing it, and like, I just loved Evergreen so much. I do not know why people do not talk about it more. I obsessed over this, and I feel like the girls that love smut, it's there. It's there, but also the world is so fun. And I don't know how the second book is going to continue because Evergreen in general, I feel like wraps up so nicely with our main characters there. So I believe we're getting other characters, not like POVs, but like their story, but not the same timeline. Like, it's a continuation. We'll see the characters from book 1 that we followed in book 2. It's going to be continuing on into the world. Like, I think that's my general understanding. So if you like Evergreen, I don't think you would have to continue, but if you want to, it will be there eventually. And then we have A Tempest of Tea. I know that there is a second book coming out. I think it was like up in the air whether or not this was going to be a standalone or like continue on. So I know it got so much love, as it should. If you love heists, you love this book. If you love vampires, you'll love this book. It was so good, a pleasant surprise. I think this is one that you could also wrap up like with just reading this book and then like kind of having the ending be what it is, where you can kind of play out this imagination in your own head of what's going to happen. But then we do have a second book for sure coming. I don't know if we're getting more than that. And then we have another standalone. This is The Color of Dragons. This is something I randomly picked up at the library. I've never heard someone talk about it. I saw dragons and I was like, I'm there. Sign me up. And this was such a pleasant surprise as well. I was just very, I guess, like shocked by liking it. And again, one of those books that I'm like, I wish people talked about this more, especially as like dragon book recommendations. It was just such a unique story to me. This next one is a part of, I believe, like an interconnected standalone kind of series, and it is Throne of the Fallen. Oh my gosh, I loved this book so much. We are essentially, that's a word, okay, essentially following different brothers, I believe, in each book. And so the first one is Envy. And so it's like the 7 sins. Oh my gosh. Envy? Yeah. It is so good. It is so good. It's by Carrie Maniscalco, I believe. And I know I haven't read Kingdom of the Wicked, but from my understanding, that is YA. This is definitely adult. And I know that a lot of people loved this book because they loved the adult writing here and like just the characters in here. So I agree. I agree so much. This one's a big one. Now, I do recommend it, but I also could see you guys holding off on it until next, like, August, September, because that's when book 2 comes out. I think book 2 comes out next October, and that is When the Moon Hatched. I did have such an amazing time with this. Guys, I read this in 2 days. It's like a 700-page book. I was sat. I was invested. I did the hybrid read. I recommend it so much because the audiobook really helped me with like the different like terms in this world, the like places, the people, like all those names were just kind of hard. And if I had to read it myself alone, I probably would have spent too much time focusing on how I pronounced it rather than like the audiobook just telling me and keeping me forward and moving forward in the book. So I really recommend the audiobook, but I really think that you need the like hybrid experience because I did try listening to the audiobook alone when I first got it like a couple months ago, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. This is crazy. I don't understand anything that I'm listening to. And instead, I got the physical copy from my library, was able to get the audiobook as well, and that hybrid experience was game changer. This next one is either a series or a trilogy. I'm not entirely sure. It is To Kill a Shadow. This was another, like, I randomly saw it at the library. I picked it up, 4.75 stars. It was so close to a 5-star experience. This YA, fantasy, slow burn romance, you guys, it is so good. Why are we not talking about it? I believe it released in April, and we have the next book coming out in December. Now, what I am trying to understand is if this author has already put it out before and she got like like it's getting republished, where now they're getting like maybe it was like only ebooks before or something, and now it's actually getting, because I'm like, can't whip out a book in 5, like what just happened? So I believe the next book is coming out in December. I am so excited for it. Like, I'm so excited. Then we have another new release. This is The North Wind. Now this came out a few months ago, maybe June, and it was one of my like local Barnes and Noble's like book club picks, and some of my friends are in it, so we read it, and oh my gosh, this was such a pleasant surprise. It's kind of like Throne of the Fallen, where I think it's gonna be 4 books, and it's following each of the brothers, north, south, east, west. So the first book is The North Wind, so it's the North brother, and then we are introduced to the West brother here, so we're getting West book as book 2. I don't remember when it's coming out. It is in the next year for sure, but this was definitely a pleasant surprise here. Like, I just loved it. I had such a great time. I did it during a readathon, so I was just like so sat reading it. I had no distractions, and I think that may have enhanced my experience, because I know that some of the other people that read it, like, they didn't like it as much, and I don't know what their reading experience was, and I feel like I generally kind of like and dislike what they do. But yeah, no, I had an amazing experience, and I feel like it's a fun series to kind of get ahead on. Like, the first book is out now, so you have time to read it. It's not something that like you're diving into 5 books today. You're not already behind. It's just the first book out. And then this last one is Half a Soul. So this is kind of this blend of like the Unmaking of June Farrow, as far as kind of the literary fiction beautifulness mixed with like fantasy. It was just such a fun book. Like, it was just beautiful. I just loved it. It is like this fantasy romance kind of situation, kind of mystery, and I just like had a pleasant time with it. It is nothing kind of like special in a way. Like, it's not, I don't even know if it got above 4 stars, but I know that I had a great time reading it, and it was such like a cozy fantasy to read, and I feel like that is like the vibe here. Cozy fantasy. Okay, well, we have officially moved the stack of books from this side to this side. So these are all the recommendations that I have for fall. I will be posting my fall TBR video here in a few days. Let me know any books that you recommend this fall.